And just keep going. Hello, welcome everybody. And first of all, happy Black History Month from our Ross family. My name is Milena Garcia, and I will be your host for our live today. To help us celebrate Black History Month, we are speaking with RUSM alumnus, Dr. Dantwan Smith. He will be chatting live about his experience and journey through medical school, and we'll also be taking questions live. So please feel free to engage with us through the chat box, and we will be reading the questions that are coming through. Dr. Smith is currently a fellow at the University of Mississippi Medical Center's Cardiology program. He was a recipient of the RUSM Alumni Humanitarian Award in 2019. Dr. Smith broke down long held barriers in career advancement for Black physicians. He was the first African American man to be accepted into the internal medicine residency program at Magnolia Regional Health Center in Corinth, Mississippi. In addition, he was named Intern Resident of the Year in the 2018-2019 academic year and was also awarded the Magnolia Regional Health Center Humanism Award for the 2019-2020 academic year. Dr. Smith, first of all, congratulations on all your achievement. Thank you for joining us here today. We're happy to have you back into the Ross family. What inspired you to enter medical school?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thanks for having me today. So, kind of two things that overall inspired me to becoming a doctor. The first thing, I have an uncle who suffered from rheumatic heart disease as a child and ultimately had to have valve replacements, went into really bad heart failure, and ultimately succumbed to heart failure. And so I was able to truly gain an appreciation from earlier on in the disease process when he looked very great, doing well, and then all the way into his latter years. And so that was one thing. And then the second thing, being able to help people in the way that they can't even help themselves, and being able to give back to the community, and being able to be somebody, a doctor, that was something that I didn't see all the time. And so those two things overall led me to pursuing medical school at Ross.
Are you the first doctor in your family?
I am the first doctor in my family, and I have a long, long list of people who are not in the health industry. So I'm one of the few that is actually in the health industry in my family as well. So
Tell us about your experience at Ross University.
yeah, so Ross, man, this was a great time to just go to Ross from 2014 to 2018. I had a lot of fun. Met a lot of different friends that I still have contact with today. So just prior to getting to Ross, the process of actually, you know, taking a flight to Dominica, that was my first actual time getting on an airplane, first time
Mhm.
um, leaving out of the States, going to a different country, things like that. And so all this was very new for me. So I leaned on the Student Ambassador Club a lot. And one of my good friends, Melissa Smith, she was able to help me with different things of that nature. And so as soon as I got to the island in Dominica, we were able to connect with a lot of different friends. Ross had a very great orientation program to kind of get you oriented and acclimated to the island. As this is very new for a lot of people, a lot of different
Mhm.
individuals. And
Mhm.
so it was a great transition process. And then the educational material was actually very, very helpful. It was very, very great. I love the systems based approach that Ross uses. It makes
Mhm.
things very concise and keeps things together per body system. And so it was excellent. The CTL, Center for Learning department, they helped out with if you needed tutoring. They also had a simulation lab that was very, very excellent. I still appreciate that even today as a cardiology fellow. But yeah, they had a lot of different things, extracurricular things that I could be involved in. Several student organizations that I was involved in throughout the my time at Ross. Some organizations that were only at Ross, some national organizations as well. And then also, like I say, they had a lot of things, outside of that, SGA. They had a lot of different, pizza parties, social gatherings and stuff like that. That helped alleviate a lot of the stress of school and stuff like that. And so, a lot of different outlets. Overall, when I felt like I was at Ross in Dominica, it felt like a different it was a different climate, but overall it was the same medical school experience from my perspective, maybe even a little bit better. And I was able to do a lot of different things that I probably thought I would never do, such as learn how to scuba dive, seeing whales, dolphins, all that kind of stuff. So it was a great experience on the island. And then even after transitioning off the island, going to the clinical years,
Mhm.
had an excellent time with my rotations. I learned a whole lot, and then I was actually able to use some of the skills that I learned on the island, such as phlebotomy, which is something that I learned solely on the island through student-run organizations. I was able to use that in my clinical years with, taking patients' blood, things of that nature. And then with the clinical years, you also learn, different other procedures like central lines, learning how to put in an arterial line, things like that. But overall, it's a great, great experience. I wouldn't take anything away, wouldn't add anything either. So, yeah.
So, and after you left, there have been some changes and some things have stayed the same. For example, we have recently moved to the island of Barbados. So, from January of 2019, our campus has officially moved to the island of Barbados, but we still use the Oregon system based curriculum that you mentioned. The students really like it. So, we're still using that. And the CTL actually changed the name to ATL. So,
Okay.
anybody listening to our live stream now, if it's now the Academy for teaching and learning,
Nice.
but still very active with the same goal, the same missions that the former CTL had. And you shared a lot of experiences in a lot of clubs and organizations. Any one in particular that you were a member of that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so I would be remiss if I did not highlight the Student National Medical Association. So this was an organization figured out within a couple of days of getting to the island, and the president essentially at the time was like, hey, just come out, see what we're about, things like that. We're a national organization. So, when you actually leave the island, you can still be involved in things of that nature. As a first semester, he was like, I would recommend, just, taking it easy, come to a few events and things like that. And then once you get, your feet under you, you can start getting involved in other things. And so, as a first semester student, I was involved somewhat, on different committees in the on the island, and then I was also a part of a national initiative called the Future Leadership Project. That was a 1 year long leadership program to kind of groom you to becoming a national officer and holding national positions. And then we also were able to connect and get a mentor that was actually a physician that could help us along the way through medical school and through the match process. And so I got started from that almost essentially, as soon as I got to the island. And so at the end of that 1 year, the Future Leadership Project, I was honored to be the national secretary for that subsequent year. And I held that position for 2 consecutive years. And then I was actually able to get the opportunity to give back and become the co-director for the Future Leadership Project. This organization, like I say, probably is one of the main reasons why I got to the residency position that I got, just through networking and things of that nature, making friends and things like that. I was able to get
Mhm.
a rotation at the place I did residency at Magnolia Regional Health Center in Corinth, Mississippi. Loved it there, and essentially they loved me, and that's how I was able to match there to my number one pick. But yeah, Student National Medical Association is excellent. Their parent is the parent organization is called the National Medical Association, but they do a host of great things. I would highly recommend going to the annual medical education conference, which is annual. They have a lot of different residency programs. When I was involved, anywhere between 150 to 200 programs that would be there to actually showcase their programs. And then in addition, Ross would also be there as well to showcase to showcase the program and the school to undergraduate students who are seeking to be admitted to medical school. So I've actually spoken there on behalf of Ross as well. But great organization, highly recommend it.
Thank you for continuing to represent us. Now, you mentioned support at many levels. You talked about getting involved, the ambassador, the ATL, all the way through residency. How important was this support system for you through medical school?
Support system is was very important, and I'll tell you guys this, kind of being a little bit transparent. So second semester probably was the hardest semester for me, and so the this is kind of ironic, but the first exam was on pulmonary and cardiology. And that exam, I remember like it was yesterday. I scored a 58, and I was like, "What the heck? What's going on?" Like, this is something that I really want to do, and it was rough. It was very rough, and that's when I kind of got really involved with ATL and doing a lot of group studying and things like that,
Mhm.
because physiology is more, it's not the length of time that you study, it's more of an understanding the concepts. And so if you don't understand the concepts, you can study for hours a day and still end up getting the questions wrong. And so long story short, went through that semester and still had trouble with the conceptualization of different things and stuff like that, and barely passed. Like the cutoff, I hit it by like right on the head, barely passed. And so um, at that time, I was like, I really have to amp it up. And I don't think I would have made it if it wasn't for support. Because if I wouldn't have made it past that semester, I wouldn't have matched for that year. Wouldn't have been able to match for the cardiology fellowship for that year. A lot of is a host of domino effects after this. And so if it wasn't for the support, I don't think I would have made it. And then even after that, I still stayed with ATL, and got with Becker course as well, that was there at that time, and continued with group studying because I knew I had to go back and kind of relearn a lot of things that I didn't understand on top of the new information for the third semester. And so I was able to truly gain an appreciation for the support that I had at Ross University, from that standpoint. And a lot of the your co-students, colleagues and stuff like that, they want to see you do better, and they don't, from my small group that we had, we didn't want to see anybody left behind. If
Mhm.
somebody was struggling, we would come by and help them out and things like that. And so once I got to semester three, it was a lot better than semester two. I think it was just due to, like I say, having that support system there. And then even after leaving the island, we would steadily check up on each other and things like that.
Mhm.
And then also you had your student coordinator that was there as well. They would also check up on you. And you had a host of support systems from, professionalism, licensure, all these different types of things, building your resume. You had that large support system specifically there for you. And so I think that was very beneficial in the clinical years as well. And then you also had, a lot of times that you would check in, they would check in and say, hey, just trying to see how things are going. You scored this on this exam, this NBME exam. I just want to make sure that, things are going well with you, and things of that nature. And so a host of, like I say, a great support system with Ross. I think, they were there for sure to back me when I wanted to do some away rotations, which were non-affiliated with Ross. And they were there to back me even with that when I wanted to do that. And so, even afterwards, going into residency, and even in fellowship, I could still call on, Ross, and things like that
Mhm.
for advice, whether it be licensures or whatever. They're still there to help you out even after you graduate. And so, I think it was a overall a great experience. Again, and nothing I would take away from
And let's continue with your life after Ross.
it.
What drew you to cardiology?
Yeah, so kind of the same thing. Initially, seeing my uncle with rheumatic heart disease. My grandmother actually passed away. His mother passed away from a massive heart attack. She was actually walking with my dad, and just started having really bad chest pains, and ultimately succumbed from a massive heart attack. And so, heart disease, coronary artery disease, and things of that nature. that runs, rampant, especially in the African American community, especially in the South, things of that nature. And then I also feel like the heart is just the powerhouse organ of the body. If you don't have a heart, you don't have anything else. So that's kind of how I feel about it. It's a very, very important structure, but at the same time, it's very, very complex. And just learning about it is fun to me, and learning about the physiology and the different anatomy is always new therapies, coming out, whether it be medicinal or whether it be from mechanical, a machine actually going into the heart, things of that nature. The new things coming out every year, every couple of years, and new trials and new studies to show us how we can better treat different disease processes from a cardiac standpoint.
And to get to cardiology, you actually have to go through internal medicine first, right? And you were named intern resident of the year, which is an incredible accomplishment. Congratulations. How was your experience doing your internal medicine residency?
Yeah, so it was great. It was great. The first year of residency is rough. I think just across the board is rough. But after that first year, you know how a hospital actually runs. You know the process of admitting a patient, taking care of a patient. And then the outpatient perspective as well. At Magnolia Regional Health Center is a community-based program, but one of the things I would say that was something that drew me to the program a lot was the procedures that we do there, and being able to be in the first line for the patient. So we didn't have a lot of subspecialties there, um, but we also able to treat patients from all different perspectives. We had to learn how to do it ourselves, and so we ran all of our codes. We did a whole bunch of intubations, central lines, dialysis catheter placements, arterial lines, lumbar punctures, a host of things, paracentesis, thoracentesis. I mean, all these different types of things, led me to there. The education was superb, with, different conferences that we had. We had a host of, subspecialists that came in as well. And then also the community, it's in Mississippi, in my home state. And it just kind of felt like I was at home, home away from home, essentially. I still miss it to this day. Um, you know, Magnolia will always have a special place in my heart. But yeah, it was definitely a good experience there. And they prepared me very well for my board exams. And I feel like the internal medicine boards was probably one of the easiest exams I've ever taken. And so that was a great feeling, actually walking out with that much confidence from the exam. But yeah, it was an overall great experience. When taking anything away, I think my attendings, program directors, they did an excellent job with the program for me and my colleagues, and everyone in my class. We've matched what we wanted to for fellowship. We've done, gotten the careers that we wanted to do for outpatient medicine, and then all of us passed our board exams. So 100% pass rate.
And outside of all these professional accomplishments that you had at a personal level, you also started a nonprofit organization named the Inspirational MD. That was back in 2018, so right after you were done with medical school. And as I understand, the goal of this nonprofit organization is to promote health in underrepresented communities and motivate young adults. What inspired you to start this nonprofit organization?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So growing up, I was definitely not the person to do like public speaking or any kind of thing like I'm doing now, or have this nonprofit organization. I was kind of quiet and things like that. And so one of the things when I went to Ross, it kind of broke me out of my shell. I was able to talk with a lot of different people from different cultures and become more diverse. And so that was one thing that I was very grateful for with Ross. And so after the day that I completed my last rotation, which was February 28th of 2018, and it was actually at Magnolia Regional Health Center, I made a Facebook post about, hey, this is my last day of medical school. This is the last day of Black History Month, and how profound it was for me being the first Black African American doctor in my family and from the community that I'm from. This just doesn't happen. It still is almost like a dream. And so I got a host of comments and likes, like I think almost maybe 56,000 likes and like 50,000 comments and stuff, whole bunch of shares and things like that. And so the news station in my local town essentially they interviewed me, and then after that, I had a host of people that were like, hey, would you come and speak to our youth? Would you come and speak at my church? Things of that nature.
Mhm.
And after the first one, I was like, I really want to be able to remember all this and be able to go back in a succinct area. And so after about, prayers and, things of that nature, I was just led to form the nonprofit organization Inspirational MD. And this has given me the platform to be able to, go out into the communities, into the deep South. I've been in Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, just to name a few states.
Mhm.
And to be able to speak to, one of the youth about, hey, education is important. But then at the same time, being able to pursue something that you want to do, your dream, not being able to mimic somebody else, because it's easy to mimic something that you see on Facebook or social media, but being able to do something that you want to do, whether that's being welding, cosmetology, whatever it may be. There are a lot of people that are successful out there that stayed in their own lane, and that's kind of the thing with Black history. I actually just spoke at a church. It's very important to stay in your own lane because Dr. Martin Luther King, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, just to name a few, they didn't try to mimic something that was done in the past. They all had their own individualized dream, and they went went really strong at it, and they were successful, and that's how they became the people that we know of them to be today. And so I talked to them about those things as well as my journey. In addition to that, because now that I'm a doctor, a cardiology fellow, is um, to someone that's not there, it seems like this is a field that's untouchable. This is something. Oh my gosh, he's like bigger than life. And I always tell them like, I'm the same person just like you. Even in the hospital, I can see how, certain, whether it be janitors, things of that nature, they're intimidated to talk to a doctor. And, I try to talk to them and say, hey, I'm just the same person as you. I'm working the same job in the hospital. You have your role. If the rooms aren't clean, we can't even put a patient in the room. We can't even take care of the patient. So you have just as an important role as I do. And so, I talk to the youth about those different types of things. I tell them my, career background, because prior to being a doctor, I used to work at Subway. I used to work at a gas station. I used to work at Kmart. I used to work at a call center. So, being humble throughout this process.
Mhm.
And then, I also talk to, middle-aged adults and some elderly adults as well. And just to tell them, it's easy to get caught up in the same routine, of going to work and coming back home and doing the same thing day in and day out. But you have these passions and these dreams. And, the next step after that is to have faith in yourself and to be able to move forward. And after faith, you have to have action, and so you have to be able to move forward and have a plan to how you're going to attack this dream that you have, and to be successful, and so I talked to them about that. Just because you're 50 or 60 doesn't mean you have to stop living. You have to stop dreaming. A lot of people prior to us, continue their dreams on, Harry Tubman, to name a few. And so just because you're elderly, you don't have to stop dreaming. And so I talked to them about that. I also do a lot of nonprofit risk management as well. I talked to them about financial literacy, and being able to actually, utilize the funds that they have where they're at, and to be able to save and things like that. So overall, I like doing all these things. And then another thing that I also do is I assist other nonprofit organizations with hosting health fairs. So whether it be churches, sororities, fraternities, those different types of organizations, I help them
Mhm.
host health fairs, and get the different types of people that they need there.
With Because of your involvement with the community, and it's so great to see how active you are. Can you also tell us about the importance of representation in medicine? Right, I'm sure you hear about it being involved with the communities at the what do they call, the grassroots level, right? Tell us a little bit more about the importance of representation in medicine.
Yeah, so my own personal philosophy, we see people in the hospital, we see people in the clinic. My own personal philosophy is that the practice of medicine doesn't start in the clinic, it doesn't start in the hospital, it actually starts in the communities. Because we want to prevent people from getting to the hospital, we want to catch people prior to they get hypertension or diabetes and things like that. And so I think more physicians should actually get out into the communities, do more health fairs or TED talks, just to increase the knowledge of the community on these different disease processes, because medicine is by itself is just, it's a different language for a lot of people. And prior to going into medical school, if someone were to say, okay, hypertension, I'm like, I don't know what that is, or the heart, what it plays on the body, and how different things act on each other. And so being able to break all that stuff down, and for people to be able to understand it, on different educational levels, someone that only has eighth grade level versus somebody that has, a PhD, being able to communicate effectively on all those different types of levels. But representation is very, very important. A lot of times that I'll see, especially in certain populations, certain areas, we'll see certain people come to the doctor, whether that be, low socioeconomic status, that comes to the doctor. I don't have these funds, so I'm going to stop coming. Or whether it be, someone that has all the funds, and things of that nature, they come, they're strictly adherent and things like that. And a lot of times, especially in Mississippi, and in the South, what we'll see is, certain people that live in this area, we know that they come in really, really sick, and they're really, really bad off. And a lot of times it's, the African American community and things like that. And they come in, they're really, really sick, and we give them all this education, but at the end of the day, we're like, we have this feeling they're probably going to be back, and 9 times out of 10 they are back. And so what we have to do is stop, think about the healthcare disparities, and we have to think about, one, is this patient being educated well? When they go home, do they know what they're supposed to do? Do we have everything written down for them? Do they have a support system at home? Do they have a parent? Do they have a family member that can also assist with them with their medical needs? Do they have effective transportation? Do they have any food scarcities, scarce, anything like that? And so, if their electric bill is $1,000 behind and they don't have any food in their refrigerator, medication comes lower on the totem pole. They're going to say, okay, I have to keep my lights on. I have to get some food. And so I'm going to forget about this medication for now. If I run out, oh, well, I'll be fine. And then that's how this, swirling effect starts to take place. And so they just kind of spiral out of control. First thing it starts with is, they have hypertension, they're not taking their medication. Okay, now they have a little bit of chronic kidney disease, and now they're on end stage renal, on dialysis, when it all started from they just didn't have the monetary needs, or they just didn't understand the severity of their illness and what could happen if they didn't remain compliant. And so I think all these different things are very, very important. It's understand. It's important for the public to understand um, healthcare disparities. I'm a strong advocate for education. If you don't know, you'll never know, and how will you be able to treat something that you don't know? And so that applies to other areas of life. And so being able to start in the schools, being able to teach the younger generation about healthy lifestyle choices, and things of that nature, plays a big role. And so that's why I try to definitely equip the younger generation, because it's easier to portray to them when they aren't 50, 60 years stuck in their ways and things like that. When they're young, 4 or 5 years old, and they start to get the mindset of, okay, I need to eat more of this, eat less of this, this is how my body works. It tends to help out the community as a whole. And so it may take some years for your quote unquote dream to come true, but eventually you'll see the fruits of your labor with advocating in the community.
Mhm. Now, we only got a couple more minutes, so please feel free to send in some questions on the chat before we wrap up here. In the meantime, do you have any advice for any future Rossies or any current medical students?
Yeah, so for future Rossies, I always say this to everybody that's thinking about going to medical school, especially in the Caribbean or Ross. I say, hey, the hardest part is actually starting. Majority of you, I can guarantee, have already been accepted or are pending exception, and you're still contemplating in your mind, should I really go about doing this or should I not? And the hardest part is literally starting. Once you start, you're fully 100% in, and you won't look back. So that's the first and foremost thing I would say. Just jump in and get started. don't push it off another semester, another year, or whatever. Go ahead and do it. For people that are in Ross, it's rough. I know it's tough, but you will make it. It's gonna be an end to this. I know when I was in your position in 2014, I thought, oh my gosh, 2018 is years and years away. I have all this time that's it's gonna take so slow to go by, but it passes by in the blink of an eye. So just continue to study hard, and most of all, make yourself proud, make your family members proud, and achieve the goal that you set out to get.
And you are right, 15,000 plus have already done it ahead of you, right? So, and are currently practicing in US and Canada. So, yes, you can do it. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. If there's anything else we can do to assist you, let us know. And thank you for continuing to always represent us. And for those of you watching us, thank you for your time, and let us know how we can help you also pursue your dream to become a physician. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.